Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So today I am moderating. uh, yeah, I will start like as usual. So a recap of what we talked about in the previous sessions, and then we will go through the fourth section of the 20th letter, which is to him is the dominion. Anyone wants to give a recap, what you remember from the previous sessions? No? Okay, fine. We won't force anyone to speak, so I have to speak. I think we have a few new faces here, so I'm gonna go through what we've been studying for the past few months. So we are studying this 20th letter from Nursi's book, the letters or al-maktubat, and we're studying the I don't know if it's is it a verse in the Quran, but we started with basically La ilaha illallah, there's no God but Allah, wahdahu, he's the one, la sharika lah, he has no partner, and lahul mulk, to him is the dominion. We went through the meanings of each of them, and now we're still studying to him is the dominion. What does it mean to him is the dominion? What does it mean lahul mulk or malikul mulk? We went through that, but we can discuss it again. So basically, what does it mean that God owns everything? If we will translate it like with a common language. What does it mean for someone to own something, and what does it mean for God to own something? So I just remember this example. We talked about it a lot. So for example, if you own, let's say, a pet, a fish or a cat or whatever, and you say, I own this pet, so it's yours. You're basically responsible of feeding this pet so it can survive. But when it comes to the dominion, it's something else. So you own the pet, but there is something else that doesn't only own the pet, but for example, knows the origin of this pet, knows the needs of this pet, knows also the end of this pet, knows you and knows your needs. So there's a difference between you owning something and God having the dominion over you and the pet and everything around you. So this is the difference between us, we own something, and us knowing it's about anything else, even yourself. So you think I own myself, but actually it's like you don't know your start, you don't know your end, you don't know what's gonna be created in you at a certain moment, what are gonna be your needs in a certain moment, how you're gonna also satisfy your needs. All of this is being created by the one who has dominion on you and on this world. So this, I think, what I understand from when we say lahul mulk, to him is the dominion. We then discussed, there was so many sections in this, to him is the dominion. And for example, last time we talked about the microcosm and the macrocosm, and we talked that the microcosm is basically the man, human, or actually other living things, and the macrocosm is the universe. And we talked about that this, the microcosm, which is the human, is basically an example, is a small example of how everything is orderly made. So there is so much complexity in the human that is actually reflecting the complexity in the universe, but the human is small example of this complexity. This is something we talked about. We talked also about that, another section we talked about is that the universe is another thing that reflects God's majesty or his dominion over this world, is that the universe, the way he created it, is basically a place for prostration, and the human is made to prostrate. And we discussed that in a way that everything in the universe, every living being or non-living being, basically every creation makes the human bewildered and makes him think that there is a creator or a maker. So it makes the universe as a place of prostration. We talked about this a lot also, everything around us tells us that there is a creator, there is a maker, there's something that is maintaining or sustaining. So it makes it a place of prostration. This is something we talked about also. Another thing we talked about, and I really liked, so we talked about how the universe, the universe basically, as I said, like the human is a smaller example of the complexity of the whole universe. We also talked about, for example, something else that tells us about the divine unity is the idea that like we are different, but at the same time we are the same. Like you see like someone's face is different, someone else's face, but there is a stamp that there is the same maker that made this face and that face and all other faces. So it means there is like one maker. So this is another thing. We also talked about, we talked about a difference. So if you will read through the sections, you will see that the author says something like, that God brings the universe or the macrocosm to being, and he gives human existence. So that's like, they are two different things, bringing something into being and giving something existence. And Brother Yusuf explained this in a very nice way last time. So he said, like there are two types of like creation. Let's say a type of creation that is basically when something is made out of nothing, and that's what in Arabic is called ibda', or like originating something. And there's something called bringing something into existence, which in Arabic translates into khalq. It means making something out of something. And when I did the research, like a bit in the Quran, for example, it says that خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ, which means God created a human from clay. So there was clay, and human was created from clay. But he says, for example, it says also خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. It means he also created heaven and earth. But he also says, the other word is badi'u samawati wal ard. It means he also made heavens and earth from nothing. And he also says fatiru samawati wal ard. So there are like different things, but it tells you like samawati wal ard are some like heavens and earth are something that are made out of nothing. And it gives them another like thing that God did, which fatir, which means it's split. So they were one, and he split the samawati wal ard. So we talked about this because it came the idea of like the author talked about like the universe and the human and all of that being like small farms. So the universe being a big farm. Oh my God. So we talked about like this we discussed also, and I remember Brother Abdurrahman bringing this up, that it's the first time we see God being described as a farmer. So what does it mean that God being a farmer? And in the book it says that so the universe is a big farm, and then there is also the earth, which is a smaller sphere or a smaller farm, and there's a human being, which is another farm, and so on and so forth. And what does it mean to be a farm? So it's basically something that being planted in there, that is means being created and then harvested. And things are harvested in this world, and things will also be harvested or will be manifested in the unseen or in the akhirah or whatever. So we talked about something like that. Something also that I just think, I don't know if it's like a translation difference in a translation, or it's actually not so important, but I'm making a big deal out of it. So in the third section we discussed last time, he says that the universe is like we are like concentric circles. Like there's a bigger circle and smaller. So concentric circle is basically there's a bigger circles and small, and all the circles have the same center. But in Arabic, it says it's overlapping circles, which I think makes more sense. Because overlapping circles, it means the circles actually are like because if you think about it, like this is the universe, one circle, and then the earth is another circle that doesn't have the same center. It doesn't have to have the same center as the universe. And then the human also is another circle that doesn't have to have the same center as earth. Like each circle has its own like center. But yeah, I don't know. Overlapping circles makes more sense because we are also like these circles are interconnected, right? Like I don't live in like I'm not a circle isolated from my like surrounding, but maybe it's not so important. thing. This is the translation. Google thing, and you go into a rabbit hole, and then philosophy, and sorry. I drew something, but it doesn't make sense. But yeah.
Your whiteboard?
No.
What happens when you need moderation to people?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I remember from previous sessions. But if someone has something else to add, please go ahead. Yeah, I had more to say, but I'm a bit nervous. So, okay. So if no one has any comment, then or question, then we can go through the fourth section. It's a bit different than the previous sections, and I felt is kind of a human centric, but we can talk about it. Anyone wants to read?
I can read.
Peter, go ahead.
Its art in the former display it as a book, while its coloring in the later shines through speech. Its meaning is this: the glorious maker's art in the macrosome is so meaningful that because it is manifested in the form of a book, thus making the universe into a huge volume, the human intellect has extracted the library of true natural science and philosophy from it, and it has written the library accordingly. And that book of wisdom is bound to reality and draws assistance of reality to such a degree that it has been proclaimed in the form of the all-wise Quran, which is a copy of that huge manifested book. Moreover, just as his heart in the universe is in the form of a book, describing its perfect orderedness, so too is coloring an inscription of his wisdom in man as upon the flower of speech. That is, his art is so meaningful, sensitive, and beautiful that it has caused the components of that animate machine to speak as though they were gramophones. It has given man such a dominical coloring in its fairest of form, that's the flower of speech and expression, which is immaterial, insubstantial, and living, as open in its material, corporeal, and solid head. It has equipped the power of speech and expression, which is situated in man's head, with such exalted tools and ability that it has caused it to develop and progress to a degree where it becomes the addressee of the pre-eternal monarch. That is the dominical coloring in man's essential nature, as opened the flower of divine address. Is it not possible that anything other than this single one of unity could interfere in that heart in creatures, which is so high as to be in the form of a book, and in that coloring in man, whereby he attains to the station of speech and address, God forbid?
There are two. You have something to say? You said you read the section.
I did read the section. Oh, okay, sure.
Let's start with the first paragraph.
Okay. Oh, okay. Wow, you really said you're not gonna put anybody. Fun.
He's still prepared.
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah.
When he came back. Okay. So when I was reading, just like sticking to the first section, I guess I focused more on like his art is the former display it as a book, while his coloring is in the latter shines through speech. And I was thinking of like his art. I was trying to differentiate between the two, to be honest. Like his art as in like just the Quran itself without actually quite going into the meaning of anything. But then seeing it through speech would just be his coloring in the latter shines it through speech being, unless you open the Quran and like truly try to understand it, meaning not just like read through and pass it, but actually like try to understand the meaning within the context of like my own life or everybody else's own life, then you might miss that the coloring shines through that kind of speech. So I felt like it was talking about the book itself, the revelation, but then also the meaning that comes from that book. So I guess that's how I interpreted the first section. And then it kind of
Wait,
continues.
So you don't think he's talking about like the creation itself?
I didn't go that far because I was really struggling. Like, should I stick to just because I thought like
Because he said that human intellect has extracted the library of true natural science and philosophy. So it means how did a human extract true natural science and philosophy? By looking like
to elsewhere.
Exactly.
So I thought that's what interests me is like, but then the way in which that natural, I guess, like I put it in the context of the book, I guess, but then even without that context might have been understood differently, but I like get, I guess, like your point too. But that was like my first interpretation of it was very much like the wording that was given, but then how it was interpreted by the humans and then moving forward. But happy to hear other opinions on that first paragraph. Anyone? Please.
think.
I'll fill up space.
Sorry.
So I'll start with the first part. He's talking about the first part of the proof. His art in the former displays it as a book, while his coloring in the latter shines through speech. So I guess his art in the former, as in his art in the macrocosm, displays it as a book. So the macrocosm, I guess you were saying the universe, is on some sort of a display, and the latter, which is the microcosm, the human being, shines through speech. And I guess some basic level or initial thoughts on the universe, or maybe just biomes and living organisms and things like that. I mean, I guess he's saying we understand these things on like a basic level, right? He displays it as a book, I would assume, since it's not, he's distinguishing humans through speech. That book of the universe is not as sophisticated as speech. It's something more, maybe visual or easily understood. And and it would point to that, the human is distinct from the universe. It's not, it's not the same. I think there's a distinction between them. Like, we might look at like a nature documentary and you might witness, how all these different species of things on whatever level, we have the prey or the predator, and how, you have the vegetation, they all kind of work within some sort of a system. But I think when you come to human, you throw a human in there, you get totally different results, right? It's not a cyclical, maybe a balanced sort of a thing. What that has to do with speech is not very clear. But additionally, like speech itself is very different from, these sort of things, like for the sake of culture, for the sake of history, for the sake of, very human endeavors. Like I think we understand it as its own thing. That's all I get.
Assalamu alaikum. So I'm just going through the sentences a little slowly, trying to make sense of them for myself. So what I understand from the glorious maker's art in the macrocosm is so meaningful that because it is manifested in the form of a book, so we see the world, the universe, as a kind of book, something to be read as a volume. and the human intellect has extracted the library of true natural science and philosophy from it and has written the library accordingly. And then me with my human faculties, I'm able to observe this book, read it, understand it, right? I'm able to extract that there's a certain order to this world, how it works. I call that science, right? So it's talking about, so far, to my understanding, it's talking about the nature of this world, which is that of being like a book, and then the human being being able to relate to it or being able to extract from it, being able to make sense of it, being able to read it. But then I'm confused about this last sentence in this first paragraph, and that book of wisdom is bound to reality. So when it's referring to book of wisdom, is it referring to the universe again? Huh?
Oh, sorry.
No? And when it says is bound to reality and draws assistance from reality. So I want a clarification maybe from someone else who's understood it better. What is referred to by book of wisdom? Is that referring to the universe? And then when it's talking about reality, is reality referring to the universe? Because to such a degree that it, and I'm guessing this it, is again referring back to the book of wisdom, is proclaimed in the form of the all-wise Quran. So it makes me think it's talking about the world as a book of wisdom, right? But it's bound to reality. So what is reality? Like it's, what does it mean by reality over there? Otherwise, I understand that it's saying that the Quran is like a copy of this manifested world in the form of a book, right? But yeah.
I had the same question when I was first studying this part. And the way I understand now, it might be still partial. So if you talk to, let's say, a thinker, naturalistic thinker, the stereotypical thinker, and ask about the universe, he would say almost similar stuff, right? But there's a big difference, and I guess that's the reason we have difficulty to understand, is that, like, as a naturalistic, let's say, scientist, okay, I would say, yeah, I'm looking at the universe, and it is meaningful. There's an order, there's a balance. The amount of material is preserved, energy preserved, and so on and so forth, all these rules. So when author says the universe is in the form of a book, actually it says, okay, the glorious maker's art in the macrocosm is so meaningful that because it is manifested in the form of a book, thus making the universe into a huge volume. So I guess what he means here is something different than this naturalistic person would say, because now he's saying that if you look at the universe, yes, there's an order and so on, but when you study it, you will realize that as if a meaning coming from it, like the emerging from the universe, like as if universe is speaking, telling us something. It's full of wisdom, and it's not just talking about the order in the universe. It's like the universe itself, the art of the maker being a book manifested in the universe, right? When you look at these the material things, or the things as we call as universe, we see something, but out of it there's a huge volume of knowledge, huge volume of meaning. That's what he's saying. And as if like a universe is proclaiming something all the time, telling us something about the the creator, its maker, and so on. And this speech of the universe, maybe the word speech shouldn't be used here because author is using also for the human, but the meaning that comes out of the universe that you read is so bound to reality Now he's not talking that, if you drop a ball, it falls with a certain speed and so on. It says the meaning you read from the universe, it's a true meaning. It tells you about what is real, what is true. It tells you about its maker. It tells you about, what is beyond what you see here. And what you read from it is the reality. This is how I understand. So when it says book of wisdom, again, it's not the science books. The order in the universe we see from a naturalistic perspective. It's what we understand from the universe, what a tree tells us. This is the part of the wisdom. And author says actually your sciences and so on is not simply you as a human being looking at the universe, making some calculations and trying to understand the rules and so on. It's actually, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, you listen what universe tells you, all this huge wisdom emanating from the universe. You listen it and you extract your science and philosophy from it, actually. Like our understanding is so, let's say, it's not static, but as if we extract something from the universe. Like the universe, it's there, right? There are some rules, there are some order and so on. And as a scientist, as a thinker, I look at the universe, I study it, and I extract the wisdom. That's how we think. But author says, no, in the universe, there's huge wisdom already emanating. There's an art speaking to you. And by listening to it, by understanding it, you make sense of reality. That's how I understand.
I have it. I want to say something. Yes. I want to say something.
You have your dedicated microphone, like a red one. Red one.
I don't disagree with what you said, but I didn't think that this is what the author wanted to tell us or wanted us to focus on. I felt like, especially if we read the next paragraphs, I feel like the author wants to emphasize on the idea, the speech here, which means intelligence. So like human intelligence, like even if there is some wisdom in the world, we won't acknowledge it. We won't see it if there wasn't a kind of intelligence that is being like, it was created in us. Like we didn't have the ability to analyze what's around us and see and, study anything that is being around us. So like, because like the way it ends, it says that, because here we're talking about, to him is the dominion. So the one who has the dominion is able to change our fitra, create something completely new that is intelligence and wisdom to be able to read his creation. So only that one has all the dominion. That's how I understood it. Yeah, go ahead.
So that's exactly what I mean with this naturalistic understanding. So we say we have an intelligence, right? And this intelligence, the machinery, interact with the reality and understands it. We extract something out of it. The way author says, let me, where's the gramophone? Yes. That is, his art is so meaningful, sensitive, and beautiful that it has caused the components of that animate machine to speak as though they were gramophones. It's the other way around. There's a wisdom meaning in the universe, and what you have inside your fitra, when this meaning comes to your fitra, it starts speaking. It starts, the understanding and then communicating, responding back to the creator. That as if, there's a beauty out there, and your fitra is sensitive to this beauty, right? And when you see beauty, this beauty makes you speak. It makes you say that this is beautiful. It's not the other way around. It's not that, I look at the universe and I say, do you know what? I think when there's such a symmetry, I will call it as beautiful. It says, no, it causes you like a gramophone, like it's already pre-recorded, right? And it starts playing. So you react to what is out there. And this reaction, like when he says speech, I don't think, again, I'm open to be corrected, but I don't think he's referring to the naturalistic understanding of the human intellect. Like the human can speak, animals cannot speak, whatever. It's not talking about that. The speech here is your reaction to the maker of this art. You see a beautiful thing, your mom brings a beautiful food in front of you, very delicious, and something inside you start, jumping. You like it. You say, oh, this is so good. Like there's an attraction toward it. You start eating it and you say, Alhamdulillah. Or you say, thank you, my mom. This is your reaction, your communication with your mom. There's a perfect fit between the two. What is out there, what is in you, your fitra. When they come together, the music starts playing. Right? There's the words of the hamd, words of thanks start playing. And he says, don't you see what's happening out there, and what's happening in you is created by the same source. They come together and they, complete each other. You start singing but you are made to sing. You are made to speak. You are made to communicate this way, to thank to the Creator. So whatever happens with you, it's actually His doings, lahul mulk. Even with you, your speech, your understanding, your glorification, it's from Him, author says.
Oh, no, yeah.
Oh, you Sorry.
Yes,
Huh?
Oh, you had it.
That's fine.
Okay. Oh, okay. I guess my question was like along that line, then why is it like, for example, his coloring and the inspection of his wisdom in man has opened the flower of speech? Like everything seems very, like imagery is very nice and beautiful. But then when I look at nature, I can find things that I don't necessarily find beautiful, but I'm still in awe of. Like even if it's animal that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. Like I'm not like, oh, this is so nice, but I can still find like, wow, this thing is powerful or whatever I'm seeing. So I just found it interesting that like the use of word throughout this section is very much like I see it like as a dream. Like I was reading it and I was feeling very like dreamy. So I couldn't really understand why he used this kind of language necessarily. So if anybody can comment on that.
So, so here, so two major things that attracts my attention. So he sees the universe as a book, and when he looks at the human, he says it's speech. So in Arabic, he is taking the universe as a kitab and human khitab. So when it comes to human, focuses on the speech part. Hitab, right? Hitab, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that khitab part, like book is a static object. Like it's an artwork, but it's written and it stays on the paper. So it might be that the author has written it, maybe alive, maybe not alive, but it's a static object that you interact with. But when it comes to speech, speech is live. So both as a work of art, so book is still a very orderly, beautifully written book, is an artwork, but and it tells a lot to you about its author. But when it comes to speech, speech is live, so it's more exciting because you know that the person who is speaking is right there. So here he took speech in two ways. First, humans' speech, literally human speech, is in a sense speech of the creator. What do I mean by that? We need to be a little careful in there. But if I take, let's say, a creation of a mountain as a word of God, which is written in there, and it seems to be static to me. But in terms of creation of Ali here, or Ali's speech here, it is being created right in front of my eyes. So the one who makes it is actively creating it, so I am observing it alive in a sense. So I can take mountain to be speech of God as well. But if I'm going to make it as a difference, I would say maybe mountain is a written word, but this is speech as it is coming out of mouth. Like it is more momentary. It's happening right in front of my eyes. So in this sense, like in some other places, author initially take existence as a book, but later on, as he starts seeing this ongoing change in the existence, he actually takes the whole existence as a speech, which means, like, if you go to, just to give one small example over there, if you go to art museum, you see that there are works of art in there which are painted and the pen is dried in a sense. So even the painters are long dead, right? But the artwork is there. Imagine if, as you're watching the artwork, you start realizing that the art is changing right there. So you will get excited now because although you don't see the painter, you see the tip of his pen and it's being updated. So in this case, it becomes more like a speech because it's live. You know that the painter is right there or his act is right there. So this is why author updates his language in his later writings. He starts talking about the existence as a speech. In this paragraph, he combines both. He first says, if you look at the microcosm, from your perspective, initially it looks like it's a book. It's written, it stands there. And he says, even if you take it a little more abstract, book of science, you take it as, let's say we call it gravity, which keeps happening the same way. It looks as if it's a book written somewhere, a rule book. But when it comes to human, and you experience yourself in the first place, you do see that the creator is actively creating right there. The creation is taking place. So human resembles in this sense more of a speech as we know of it, not like book being written somewhere, but it is as if you think about it, human is still the ink of the tip of the pen. If you take yourself as being created right now, the creation is very fresh with you. Now, author jumps even from there, this metaphorical sense of khitab, speech, he now jumps into a human is made now literally in a way to read the book and be the addressee of the speech. So much so that somebody is speaking to you and he made you to be able to understand and respond back. So this aspect of human, imagine you are making a robot. Robot is like very systematically working, let's say like a car. But the car doesn't understand you, you don't understand car, it just goes. But you are making car so advanced now that when you say something, the car is understanding it, understanding your command.
Nowadays, we are making such cars. But even take it to the level that car is understanding and appreciating and enjoying, like being addressee of you, mukhatab, like again with the word khitab, he's becoming an addressee to you. So now he is combining in the macrocosm, you have this creation as a book, and in the microcosm, a human being, and at the head of the human, there's this conscience who can understand, appreciate, read and understand and appreciate and respond back. Again, completing the cycle in this sense too. So I don't know if it had been a little bit mixture, but two aspects of khitab is in here. First is humans' live creation is speech of God. It's more unlike a book, but more like a speech because it's happening right in front of me. I know myself. And the second more literal aspect of it is the creation is the artwork, and me, by given the ability to understand and respond back with my talk, I can read the speech of my creator, the book, and respond back with my speech, is how I understood it, but inshallah I didn't mix it up too much.
Well, we had a question here.
Well, at some point, because it's going to be too late after the discussion.
So going back to your question, I think it's a wonderful question because, yes, we can read such texts as the author is only talking about good things, beautiful things, like a fairy tale and so on, but there are ugly things in universe as well, even disgusting things, right, in the universe. So I would say we can make such, the classification, such groupings like the beautiful things, ugly things, and so on the surface level. That's true. And we used to think this way, and we call it as thinking, as wisdom. Going back to your initial point, when we think about the wisdom in the universe, for instance, what comes to our minds is that I study animals. I see how they fear, for instance, and I say that the fear is there to keep them alive. Because when there's a predator, they see it, they have this feeling of fear, they're scared, and they run away. And I call this understanding as wisdom, right? And we usually don't go beyond that. But when we follow the author's suggestion and try to read the universe, not just look what happens and give some names. Oh, he saw the predator and then run away. This is fear. That's what we do. Instead, the author says, let's listen. Let's read what's happening there. And the best way you can do it to look at your senses when you are afraid, for instance. I'm using the fear as an example because you were saying that there's some stuff in the universe that I don't like, but I feel awe. And fear, for instance, one so-called negative thing, right? When I study my fears, for instance, right, I realize it's not, a survival skill, but rather it makes me realize that I need help, that I'm weak, that I need protection. When I'm a child, for instance, I seek the protection from my mom. When I'm old, it's not the option anymore. I say, oh my God, protect me. So it's a door for seeking refuge, the fear. So the feeling of fear made you an addressee of your Lord. So it has a wisdom there. It has a purpose to make a communication between you and your Lord, your creator. So when you look at this way, even so-called ugly things in the universe will work in the same way that the author explains. There's a wisdom out there, and this wisdom interact with your fitra and makes it, the move, put it into action. And through this action, you start speaking to your Lord. So it's not about just seeing a beautiful flower. It's seeing a disgusting thing on the floor and trying to run away from it because you love what? The cleanness. And you say that, oh Lord, please give me a clean environment. Now you realize your weakness, your desire, your need, and you are asking for it. So it serves the purpose the same way the author describes. But before,
In the light of what you just mentioned, can you explain these lines? The human intellect has extracted the library of true natural science and philosophy from it and has written the library accordingly. So in this line, the like you but how you explained it beautifully, like as Allah has made the person to understand everything, and from those feelings you can understand everything and you can understand mercy. But in these lines, it feels like human has. So if you could just explain those lines and what you mentioned earlier.
so it says the humans took it from this library. I'm just looking at the original. It doesn't matter, like extract or took. I think what author means here is not like our understanding is we invent. Like we look at the universe and we create meaning. We decide what is meaningful, what is not meaningful. We say I will call a symmetrical face as a beautiful face, for instance. Right? We try to give definitions. But I guess here it's more like, the wisdom is out there talking to you and you just take it from there. This is how I understand. Like you don't invent something. Maybe you discover something.
So we'll have a break now for Maghrib prayer. We'll be back in like 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay, we're back. So. Javier, he asked his question, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you did, you did, right? Yeah. Yeah. Any more questions? Hmm? No, I think Brother Burkan was explaining to him.
No, he explained it to me.
Yeah, okay. Any questions? You sure? Okay.
Can I make a very small comment?
Sure, yeah. Where's the second? Yeah.
So, like in the previous one, it was saying that the macrocosm is made like a masjid, and human is made a sajid, the prostrator in that environment. And in this one, in a similar fashion, he is saying that the macrocosm is made like a book, and in the microcosm, human is made in a way to be able to understand it. So the speech end of it. And what was the main point? Lahul mulk. So in the bigger scheme of the things, it's written like a book. The whole existence, including me myself, is written like a book. But on the receiver end of it, as when I come to human is made in a way to understand, appreciate, and respond back that speech. So in this sense, I should question, as if the author is attracting our attention to something that we take for granted, like humans can speak. But how about this being able to speak? What is at the other end of it? Me being able to speak is with the whole creation, the creator is speaking to me, and I am made to understand that speech, and I can respond back to the speech. So the one who is speaking with the existence, who has written the book of existence, must be the one who put this ability to understand that speech to my head. And he is the one who is, when I respond back, is the one who hears. So now he is taking the ability of human speech as at the very core and saying that this, do not take it for granted. It is given. And the one who gives that speech to you, to your head, is the one who is speaking through the creation.
Yes.
I just wanted to add a comment onto what I mean. He said the one who's speaking to you through your own head. And then also we had talked about the sentence, but I just wanted to bring our attention to it again because I just really enjoyed the wording about the gramophone. So the sentence is, that is, his art is so meaningful, sensitive, and beautiful. So his art, being the book, the world, the existence around us, is so meaningful, sensitive, and beautiful that it has caused the components of that animate machine. So I'm the animate machine, or humans are the animate machine. I have components, and has components of me to speak as though they were gramophones. So I guess gramophones is something that amplifies sound, like a speaker or like a megaphone or something like that. And it just, I think it was, I mean, it's a beautiful wording, but also I find that's my reality when I live, like day to day, I'm going through my experiences, but constantly I'm being hammered or like drowned in constant emotions. Like I look at outside of my window at work and I could feel like 10 different emotions at once. Like, oh, why am I in the office? Or it's raining outside. Maybe it might be, I might get drenched if I go out there. Constant. I have so many emotions that I feel just from looking outside from a single thing. And I don't need to kind of force myself to feel these. Just the components of my body are speaking these to me. And it's like I have an antenna wherever I go. I'm just constantly hearing speech. Like I'm aligned with the radio frequency of the universe, you could say. And wherever I go, I can hear it. Like right now, they want to hear aliens. So they want to like listen to sound waves from outside or electromagnetic waves. But in some sense, I look at the stars and I definitely feel something. Like I am definitely picking up on some emotion. because I look there and I feel something. So wherever a human goes, we're so in tune with the rest of the universe. Like the universe has been made in a language that I can read. It's a book that I can read. And I've been given the components that pick up on it. And I just really like the cohesion there, how they fit together so well. And on top of this, I mean, someone can go through their whole life just getting these emotions and feeling like, why is this happening? You know, people go through depression, or they might be like, they can't make sense of things. So I have these emotions, but the next part is making sense of these emotions, making sense of what is this thing inside of me that when I'm living in this world, like what are all those feelings? And there is where I think it kind of alluded to the Quran, or this meaningful speech, where once I have these feelings, I ask, what is this? Why is this here? And then something like the Quran, it tells me the purpose of this. And it's then the next part is like, you know, I need to intentionally then try to go into this dialogue with my creator. You have created this sadness, let's say, in my heart. Why is this sadness there in my heart? How can I read this? What are you trying to tell me? What's the meaning in there for me? And I think this way, like whatever I experience in my life, it gains meaning. And sadness doesn't just become sadness for the purpose of sadness. Now there's like a meaning there that I can read. There's a wisdom in it. And happiness also, there's a wisdom in it. And I can learn something from that. So I just wanted to make a comment about that.
I have a question if no one has any questions.
I have maybe one comment about what. About. So when he like to try to define the gramophone, he took it as more like a speaker amplifying sound. In the gramophone, there's also this like the records, the discs, like the music is already there, and it plays this music, it records. So it's already there, and it's being played. So as if there's something in the universe triggers, they select the record, like your feelings, for instance, and you see something, and the record of beauty is triggered, and now you are singing the beautiful songs. And other things triggers the record of disgust, and then you are playing the disgusting songs.
So I'm gonna like try to understand what Brother Yusuf and Brother Abdul Rahman and Brother Burkan said, and then ask my question, because then my question will make sense. So what we're saying here, or we're trying to say, is that we're trying to explain what the author is saying. First, Brother Yusuf said, so the author in the previous paragraph said that this world is a place of prostration, and the human is given existence to prostrate. So this can also be the same here. So the world basically is a book, and human is being meant to read this book, see this book to its reality. So, and Brother Abdurrahman also said the same, but he also added like, it all adds up to like, or makes up the human experience. Whatever we have of feelings, of emotions, of like thoughts, everything is basically, you know, kind of like from this what we're like seeing around us, like it's trying to tell us something, which I find a bit like, and so first of all, like this is more like, is it only like a human thing, or does it apply to all like living beings? So for example, am I the only living being who's able to read the universe in this way? Because if that's the case, because like if I'm the only living being able to read the universe in this way, then why does God say that every living being actually like what is it called, praises the Lord or something like this, praises in his name? So this is one question. Another thing is that what Brother Burkan was saying, that we are not inventing things, it's basically we're discovering stuff. So it's like it's just something
appreciating stuff. Not, I wouldn't even use the word discover.
even
appreciate.
it feels like what an evolutionary biologist would say, like, but you're taking it from a more what is the word, oh my god, like a more intellectual thing, you know, like a biologist would say that we are what we are just because of like how we evolved with the universe, you know, like we are an outcome of what like what happened, like the environment around us shaped us, the, you know, the where we were living shaped the size of our brain. We are like, what you're saying also is like at some point we saw rain and we came to know that there is rain and we came to appreciate rain.
I don't use like we came to appreciate. I say we are colored in this way. The author doesn't say you evolve with the creation shaped you. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
It says there's something in the creation and there's something in you. Both are given and they you know, interact with each other. It's a completely different thing.
So it does exist, even like, well, this appreciation will exist, but it will only like, it will only manifest in certain situations. Let's say you will only, I mean, you can only appreciate rain if you see the rain. If you see the rain at some point, there's no rain.
This is how you live your life, for sure. But you wouldn't get a causal relationship out of it. You would say, I see something beautiful, and a beautiful color in me is now triggered, you say.
Okay.
Your biologist friend would say, there is no such thing as beauty. We happen to be living in such, environments, and for certain reasons, we started call them as beautiful because when we eat them, they are not poisonous. They would nourish us, and if we don't eat, if we eat other things, they would poison us, and we start calling them as ugly. That's what your friend would say. Right? It's just opposite.
Okay, what about the first part of my question, which is like, you know, this is more like, it's very human centric, like all the feelings, all the experiences. What about like other living beings that also praise in the name of God? How does this, how does this speak to them or about them? If anyone wants to comment.
The text or the like,
Well, what
in
he
this
means,
text,
right?
how is
What
this different?
because like when he talks about the universe,
Yeah.
right, and he talks about like the macrocosm and he talks about the microcosm, but you also have other living beings that are like they are like also what is it called, worshiping or praising in the name of God, right?
Like, where are they in this?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yes. I don't know where the microphone is. You can.
So generally that text 20th letter, also the way about how the first portion was written, it was talking about how every part of that phrase brings in a glad tidings to human. So that text is specifically human centric in this sense. So we are trying to read it from human end, or even the first part, unlike the rest of Nursi's writings, the first part was directly speaking about benefits or the glad tidings of the phrases. The second portion was giving us the justification. So author is making even a difference here. So I think in here he is speaking more to humans' feelings, starting from there. And in the second part, still giving justification, but putting the two extremes. On one hand, afak, the outsides, and then comes to anfus, to the human self, and leaves the rest to us, like filling the in between. Maybe then you can relate it, saying that if this is the case for me, how I can understand, I can appreciate, as this was in one of the previous discussions, Brother Abdullah made that comment actually. He said that how about if, like in the top of a mountain, some flower is created and then it just dies away, nobody observes it and whatnot. You can then extrapolate and say that, oh, therefore there must be other beings, other conscious beings who read the rest of this speech, which as a human I do not. This is some gaps that we will now extrapolate our understanding. But as I can relate to it within myself, confirm it, the rest is going to be easier. And okay.
Shall we read further or shall we? Yes,
Can I say something?
of
But
course.
if there are no other questions, this is very tangential.
Okay, before I leave the microphone, there was a comment from Zara. So he says this reminded him of some verses from Surah Al-Dhariyat, which is 51st chapter, and verses 20 to 23. And the verses goes like this: وَفِي الْأَرْضِ آيَاتٌ لِلْمُوقِنِينَ. And on the earth are signs for those that are certain. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And also in your own selves will you not then see. So وَفِي الْأَرْض and then فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ. And then وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. And in heaven is your sustenance as that which you are promised. And this concluding verse, I guess, is where he makes the tie. فَوَرَبِّ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ مِثْلَ مَا أَنَّكُمْ تَنْتِقُونَ. Then by the Lord of heaven and earth, this is the very truth, as much as the fact that you can speak intelligently to each other. So the verse is concluding by the fact that you know that you can talk to each other, you can verify or confirm all these. So the evidence for and mention three claims, if you like. There are signs in the earth, there are signs in yourselves, and then وَفِي السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ, heavens and the earth, the creator is creating. So what are the evidence for that? The verse concludes by saying that you can be as sure of this as much as you speak. So therefore, if the verse is attracting the fact that we can speak has something in it. I'm taking it for granted, but if I think about it, how is it that I'm speaking in the first place? And likewise, in this text, the author is saying that the way that you are made to be speaking, or you are being made right now to be speaking, is, if you like, the brush stroke of someone. And the brush stroke here is also a Quranic term, sibghat Allah. So he's using that term here. Your speech is a brush stroke of the creator, you being able to speak. And this is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is he is speaking to you through the creation. The creation is his speech. So the one who speaks through creation is the one who makes you speak. So combining these two parts, therefore you can be as sure that as I am being made to speak, the same one is speaking to me through the creation, through the existence, hence becoming lahul mulk. Both ends of the spectrum is owned or governed by the same one.
What surah was that?
Yes, first verse number 1.
Can anyone explain the last paragraph? Is it all possible? So
Can you read it?
yeah, so the lines that I'm trying to understand are, which is so high as to be in the form of a book, and in that coloring in man whereby he attains to the station of speech and address, God forbid. So I can understand the first line, that is it all possible that anything other than the single one of unity could interfere in that art and creatures? But what about the following lines? If someone could explain those.
Again, that very quick, I will just repeat, nothing new, really. So again, in this last paragraph, it is a key and lock relationship he is talking about. In one end, the lock part in that analogy is the book. So there's this, the universe is his book or his speech in written form. And on the other end is human. By the ability to talk, I am reading this book. Like it's written in a way that I can understand. So whomever made the lock, could it be that anybody other than the one who made the lock to make this key? Can it be anybody other than the one who wrote the book to give this speech or ability to understand speech to the head of you human? So two ends of the spectrum is governed by the same one.
That's interesting. I would say the exact same thing, but just the opposite in the key, the lock relationship. So I would say the same thing, like there's such a relationship, so there cannot be anything but a single creator. But I was taking as the key, as the wisdom in the universe, which is like a book. And then the lock is what is in human fitra, and this key opens up the lock of the human, and human starts becoming an addressee of the creator. But again, the conclusion is the same. So maybe I can add something about your earlier comment as well here. So for instance, the author says you cannot explain this any way other than there's a single creator creating both and making them work together, kind of. So but your friend, yourself or myself, your friend would say, you know, they just co-evolve. Right? And like if we go, so as if there's another explanation, like you don't need any maker, they just co-evolve. And if you go back to the very first paragraph when he says there's so much meaning emanated from the universe, it's like a book, it can be read, and so on. The true, I don't know why the translator translated as true science, the natural science is just the Fenni Hikmet, like the wisdom of sciences. The human being got it from what is written in the universe. So the way I understand is when you look at the creation, there are certain things that nobody can deny, no matter whether you are a believer or not. When you look at the creation, you will see that everything is working together. One thing happens here, as I respond, something else happens in me, for instance. Right? Harmony. We all see that. And this is what the author says, like everybody sees this wisdom, and the true essence of sciences are from the wisdom out there, right, in the creation. When it comes to, let's say, a pseudo explanation of a co-evolution, it's just giving as Quran says, just giving a name. It's not an explanation. You say, you see, there's a art in the universe. They wouldn't even say art. You would say there are objects in the universe having certain properties, and there are some responses in you, and we call them as co-evolution. This is what we do. We don't explain. We don't say, for instance, when author says it's like a gramophone, it's an explanation because it extends our understanding. I say, oh, when somebody makes this gramophone example, gives the gramophone example, for instance, I say, oh, it means like there's something in me already. I'm already colored in a certain way, right? And when I see something with such shape or whatever, I call it as beautiful, or I call it as justice, injustice, whatever. There's such a relationship, and it is already in me, right? This explanation now adds something on top of it. But when I say co-evolution, it's just a name to explain what is in front of me.
More descriptive.
It's just description, but we pretend as if it's an explanation. We think it's an explanation because there's an implicit claim there, which is what is outside the universe shapes you. This is the claim, implicit claims, right? As if there's a hand, take your clay, and the reason I'm using the clay because the one author says there's the fairest of forms. It has given man such a dominical coloring in his fairest of forms. The original is Ahsan Taqweem.
Right.
Right? So as if the hands of nature makes your taqweem, like your shape, your form. Okay? That's the implicit thing. They don't say it obviously because it doesn't make sense. Like the hands of the nature, as if there is like an existing thing shaping you. There's no such thing, right? Because of these implicit claims, we think it's an explanation, as if it's adding something, extra on top of what I already see, but it's nothing like that. It's just a false name. So going back to the last paragraph, an author says, can you explain in any other way other than the single one of unity that explains this key and the lock relationship? This is a true explanation. So, yeah, anyway.
Thank you. That was nice. Did we stop here? Well, thank you everyone for the questions and the comments. And yeah, so I'll say the dua, I guess. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.